Hey guys, welcome to what is really exciting. It's Healing Fibromyalgia's YouTube channel. I just cannot believe that we're even here. It was only 3 weeks ago that I decided I was going to upload some videos onto YouTube. I was just so excited that I'd managed to get to the point where I was feeling better. And I was out for a run, and I was just really excited to share a video in the hope that it inspired some other people to have a look at whether or not they could improve their fibromyalgia. And if I'm honest, the response on TikTok has been absolutely unreal. We've had over 1 million views in that 3 weeks. And it's led me to want to share my journey with you guys even further than I already have. Um, so, for those of you that don't know, my name's Paula. I'm in my early 40s, and I've had fibromyalgia now for a really, really long time. Um, Back in 2017, I hadn't been very well for a number of years. And I'd been backwards and forwards to see my GP. And she had been looking at my symptoms, and she couldn't really work out what it was that was the problem. I'd got pain in my hands, pain in my feet, pain in my ribs, and also pain in my jaw. And we'd gone backwards and forwards with different medications like amitriptyline, and also painkillers at that time. And she'd just drawn a blank, really. And that was when she referred me on to the rheumatologist. Now, she referred me on to the rheumatologist, and I saw him in 2017, and we'd had some blood work done. He was looking at my bloods to see if there was anything underlying, whether or not there was another medical reason why I was getting all these symptoms. He looked at my blood work, ruled everything else out. Then he did the pressure point test. There's 18 different pressure points that we've got in our body. And the reason he's checking for those is to kind of understand my responses, my pain response when he was touching them. And that, along with a conversation about my symptoms, was at the point that he diagnosed me with both chronic fatigue syndrome and fibromyalgia. And he came up with a bit more of a plan in terms of medication that I could then pass on to my GP. And he was suggesting things like pregabalin and duloxetine, and also um, painkillers like codeine, tramadol, and oromorph. So I went back to my GP. We looked at the medications, and those were the medications that over the next kind of 5 years I tried. I had a look at what suited me. I didn't really feel like anything did suit me. And progressively, my fibromyalgia got worse and worse and worse. I was at the point where 18 months ago, I could barely walk. I would be walking with a walking stick. If I went out of the house, I would have to use a mobility scooter. And I just didn't really leave the house for very many reasons at all. I felt really conscious of using my mobility scooter, and I think that that was one of the reasons why I isolated myself away. But I also had huge amounts of fatigue, and I was absolutely shattered all the time. So I would spend months and months in the house, sometimes weeks and weeks in bed. And my body really hurt. I would have so much pain in my legs and pain in my collarbones and pain across my back. And those were my main pain areas. Now, I know everybody's fibromyalgia is different and your pain presents in different areas, but those were the predominant ones for me. Um, I then got huge amounts of fatigue. I could do very, very little. And whenever I did do anything, it would lead me into sustained periods of having to be in bed. So again, I just kind of stopped doing those things. And when you tell people, oh, well, I have to be in bed, they kind of assume that that's going to be quite nice and quite fun. But my brain fog was significant, and I couldn't really watch the telly. I couldn't read a book. I couldn't scroll on my phone. Some days conversations would be really difficult for me to have because I just wouldn't be able to find the words. And I was really desperate. I mean, my fibromyalgia was getting worse and worse and worse as the time went on. And I just couldn't understand how life was going to carry on the way it was. Um, and I phoned my GP and I just said, listen, I know we've done various different medications. I'd been to the pain management clinic, but I needed to try the next option. And it was a new GP. We'd recently moved house, and she said to me, well, just give me a minute. I'm going to read your file and we'll make a plan. And she read my file and she said, I'm really sorry to say, but there is nothing more that we can do. You've had all of the medications we offer. You've been to the pain management clinic. Really, there is nothing else that the NHS can offer. And at that point, I was just completely devastated because I was in my late 30s, getting on for 40, and I'm thinking, well, hang on, is this how life is going to be now for the rest of my life? I'm going to spend 40 years getting worse and worse and worse and worse and having such a poor quality of life. And I was just absolutely devastated. When I put down that phone from her, I was completely devastated. And I'm not going to lie, I was really upset and I had a cry. Um, and then I decided I didn't want to give up. And that's the truth. I decided I didn't want to give up. I didn't want to be like this forever. And if she wasn't going to help me, I was going to try and help myself. Um, so over the course of um, a, a while, a few weeks, months, I researched and I researched and I researched. Every time my brain was working well enough, I would be watching clips on the internet. I would be listening to podcasts. I would be reading articles. Anything I could get my hands on, I became completely obsessed with my journey of trying to heal my body. And what that led me to was to understand more about fibromyalgia, more about the impact that it's having on not just my body, but everybody that's suffering with it. And also the impact that it has on our nervous system. And there's so many people with fibromyalgia that think they have to justify their fibromyalgia because it's not something that people can necessarily see. And I just want to use this platform to reassure people with fibromyalgia that it's not all in your head. This is a problem that's affecting your nervous system, and your nervous system is compromised. We now know because the doctors are telling us that it's compromised because something significant happened in the early portion of our life. It could have been a viral infection, but it could have been trauma. It could have been a significant trauma event. And that impacted how our nervous system was developed in the first place. So now we're at a situation where every time we add any more stress onto our nervous system, it becomes completely overloaded. And then we end up with huge amounts of pain and huge amounts of fatigue because our body and our nervous system just cannot cope. So I started my journey of trying to relieve all the pressures that I was putting on my body because I couldn't work out why my body wasn't making energy in the same way that everybody else's body was making energy. So I started looking at what I was putting into my body. I wanted to cut out the chemicals because I understood that people with fibromyalgia were more sensitive to chemicals, and that could also have been chemicals in my food. So that's where I started. I cut out all of the processed food out of my diet. I cut out all of the inflammatory oils out of my diet and I started to intermittent fast. And I did all of those three things at the same time. And in doing those three things at the same time, I felt a significant change in my body within 2 weeks. Now, that's not to say that I was where I am now, but I was feeling on a journey of progression and moving forward. And it gave me enough clarity in my brain to actually start thinking, well, what's the next thing I can try? What's the next thing I can try? What's the next thing I can try? But my journey led me to understand that it wasn't just physically the overwhelm of my body and what I was doing and what I was doing to stress it out. So adding all the processed food in, and then it having to work harder than it normally would. But it was also the emotional stress that I was putting on my body. It was everything that related to your emotions that you can even think about. It was how I treated myself. It was how I thought about my body and my role and my identity. And it was about how I carved out my life and the things that I thought were important. And I then had to look at what else is going on? How am I dealing with my day-to-day stress? Am I coping with stress, or am I just letting everything overwhelm me? And also, I had to think about things that had happened in my past. And were my traumas of my past having an impact on my day to day future and my day to day physical body? The reality is it was everything. And it's taken me this 18 months, and I'm still doing it every day. Every day I'm thinking about all of the decisions I'm making for my body and the things that I can do to make myself feel better. Now, I've just talked about changing my diet and looking at my emotions, but that's not the only thing that I've done. I just wanted to give you a snapshot of my journey and to say that if you are in a position where your fibromyalgia is unmanageable, you feel like it's completely overwhelming you, and that you don't see a way out of this pain. I've been where you were, and I never in my wildest dreams thought that my life would be the complete 180 that it's turned out to be. So I want to make these videos. I want to share everything that I've done. I want you guys to learn. I will keep sharing everything I know, but you guys, please, in the comments, keep sharing the things that you know, because what I've learned in my 3 weeks on TikTok is that there's loads of people out there that actually have made changes to their life and their fibromyalgia is also feeling better. So let's share. Let's create a positive community, because chronic illness it's really sad. And if we can minimize the sadness as much as possible, and we can look at the positives, and we can feel like we can take some ownership over our bodies and our symptoms and our lives again, there's so much power in that. And there's so much healing that we can do. So, guys, thank you so much for joining me today. Please, in the comments, let me know where you're at. Let me know if you've tried things that have worked, but also let me know what you're most interested in learning about in the things that I've shared through my TikTok account, but things that might directly impact you and your life, because we all are different. We all have different fibromyalgia symptoms and we all have different lives, and we can't expect one fits all. But what we can do is we can always share in what has worked for us. And the more we share this information, the more chance that other people are going to feel better. So, guys, thank you so much. The support and the love over the last 3 weeks has been just absolutely awesome. Let's just grow this community together. Please like, please subscribe, please share these videos as wide as you can, and I will see you next time.